You've been seeking answers from every dermatologist, doctor, and all over the internet wondering what on earth this unbearable skin issue is. You know something's up, and you've been suffering and silenced for far too long. This podcast is going to bring awareness to the brutal reality that is topical steroid addiction and withdrawal syndrome. It will give you practical mental and physical tips to help you along your journey and provide you the strength you need to push through each day. You'll hear from real people battling this illness, as well as experts in the field, and I'm also going to share with you what's happening as I battle and conquer TSW. You are not alone, you're not crazy, and you will heal. If there's one thing I know, it's that anyone going through this hell is a warrior. My name is Jennifer Powers, and I welcome you to TSW Journey to Healing. Hey, what's going on? Jen here. You're back, episode 2. I am so grateful that you are here, tuning in, subscribing, reviewing the show. It means a whole lot to me, and I'm just really excited because today I ramped up the website. You can go ahead and go to tswjourneytohealing.com, and you'll be able to check that out. I'm super duper excited. My background is graphic and web design, so I had a little bit of fun with that. Definitely not anywhere ready. Of course, if you're listening to this episode in the future, I'm sure it's going to be totally ready. But if you're going along this journey step by step in the present day and time with me, then you'll see where we're getting started with it. It looks really great, if I say so myself. Anyway, I thought that it would be cool to tell you who the heck I am and take you back. I want to go back to the very beginning, and I might even break this episode into 2 episodes, part 1, part 2. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. I just decided it right now. So we're going to do that. Let me take you back to the beginning. I want to tell you my story, my past childhood, adolescence, and obviously I'm not going to bore you to death, but I'm going to tell you the big moments, the things that really stood out in my memory and that have shaped my journey into where I am today, currently going through TSW. So I'm doing this because I want I'm sure that there's going to be pieces of my story that are similar to yours, and it's important to know who you're spending time listening to, because nobody wants to feel alone, and I'm sure you're going to be able to relate to a lot of, if not all of my story, at least pieces and parts of it, that are going to be similar for you and your story. So, okay, let's go back. I believe that I was born with eczema, but I was not officially diagnosed with it until I was 2 years old, when my mom took me to our dermatologist, family doctor, and that is the diagnosis that I got. So I'm excited to have my mom on the show. I am going to be interviewing her or having a good chat with her in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. That should be a really good one, especially for those of you that are parents, maybe that have young children that you are noticing are having these itchy rashes, these pesky things, and aren't sure what to do and what your next steps are. I think it'll give you a great perspective. So be on the lookout for that. But, my mom she's an incredible mom. My parents, both of them, I'm super blessed, very lucky. But they did what any parent would do. And, we go to the doctor and they prescribe what? Dun, dun, dun. A steroid cream. The very first one that my tiny little body was ever introduced to was at 2 years old. So when I have her on the show, she's going to remember names of creams that I do not remember. And I don't want to, go down all the lists, because Lord knows, I ingested and topically put on my skin so many different names of, and how those names are of those steroid creams are so crazy long and complicated, some of them. So I will just tell you that the earliest one that I really remember was called Elidel. Elidel was in a white and yellow tube, I believe, and I used that cream like it was... I used it all over, head to toe, including my face, when I was real little toddler, grade school, high school. I used it all the time. I remember having tubes and tubes and tubes of that in my medicine cabinet, in my nightstand, just like it was everywhere. I also remember Elicon was another one, and a whole bunch of other ones. So let me just take you back so you can be on this emotional journey with me, okay? So I don't remember, like most of us, most adults, don't remember so much when we were really, really little, right? From ages 2 to like 6, 7, 8, 9, I mean, it's kind of a blur. All that I can tell you is that it was the beginning of tons of use of steroids for me. Now, I did not start to use oral steroids until high school. So that'll probably come in part 2 of of the next episode. So what I can tell you though is that I remember the itch from back then. I remember how great it felt to have these steroids on my skin, how much of it, sometimes instantaneous relief, believe it or not, okay, from way back when. And I do remember that. What I also remember, and I'm sure my mother will go into detail about this, is after probably the age of 3, I think, whatever potent steroid cream went on my skin, it wasn't Elidel, it wasn't one that I probably can't remember the name of, well, it took the pigment out of my skin. Now, where my eczema started was the classic places, insides of my elbows, behind my knees, and I don't think it was anywhere else. It could have possibly been my jawline or my neck. Again, my memory isn't going to go back that far, but I know for a fact it was behind my knees and my elbows, insides of my elbows. Well, when I put that cream in those places, nobody, again, the doctor at the time did not say to my mom to be aware of any side effects whatsoever. Well, one of those side effects apparently was taking the pigment right out of my skin. Now, years and years later, another doctor will tell me that that was not a side effect of the cream, but rather a side effect of the itching. Who knows if that's accurate, not accurate? I don't know. That's not an important detail. The detail, though, is that the pigment of my skin, now I am Italian and Irish. I naturally have olive toned. I got real dark in the summer, real tan with just being out in the sun for just 2 seconds. Well, all my childhood pictures, the insides of my elbows were bright white. So it looked, so silly. But luckily, when we're children, at least when I was a child, nowadays kids can be super mean and bullying is no joke. But back when I can remember being, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I don't remember being bullied for it, but I look at pictures even to this day and oh my gosh, it's almost as if somebody got an eraser and erased a whole big circle patch on my skin to make it like see-through, bright white. Now obviously in the winter months when we're not as tan, we're not sun-kissed, that kind of thing, it wasn't as obvious, but it still was, to the point where I remember driving, then getting a little self-conscious of it, maybe when I was like, starting to like boys and getting into having crushes and things like that. So 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there, I drove with my parents to I guess you'd call her a some kind of makeup artist that was, specific for skin, covering things up. So my parents spent so much money on this camouflage makeup. I remember one of them looked like a deodorant stick, but it was this tannish color, skin colored, chalky like roller thing. It literally looked like a deodorant stick. And I put that plus then a pressed powder type of thing on top and then something else on top. It was like a 3 or 4 step process. After they spent all that money, what does Jen do? She does not use it. It was such a process. It didn't feel great. At that time, it didn't irritate my skin. But it also was like, you can't sweat with it. It sometimes got on some of my clothes. So it was just such an ordeal. And, like most younger kids, they're not going to spend all the time and effort and energy doing that. It's just too much to do, too much of a hassle. So that is what I remember from probably grade school and before grade school time. But still, during those times, yes, it was itchy, but it was never consistent. It was never 12 months out of the year, every day, 365 days a year. It wasn't like that. It would come and go, but it was always there. Now we're getting into the teen years, and everybody that either has a teenager or you're listening, so you were a teenager at some point, and if you remember back then, it is rough. Your body's going through all the changes, hormones, yada, yada, yada. So I remember being 7th and 8th grade. I had so much stress. I didn't like my school, to the point where I actually switched over from the junior high school that I was going to stay at and attend. I moved over to my where I ended up going, which was St. Basil Academy. Shout out SBA. Unfortunately, as of 1 or 2 years ago, the school has officially closed its doors, but I decided to completely shift gears. My mom started working at that school the year before I attended. I went to school, gosh, I'm going to date myself, but what was that? Back in 2001. My high school years were 2001 to 2005. So there you go. But I already told you I'm 35, so whatever. So I start going to high school. And luckily, it was an all-girls Catholic high school. So I had the uniform going on. I didn't need to worry about what I was wearing every day. My hair was a hot mess. Didn't need to worry about like looking all cute for boys. It was amazing. I wish there were more schools like that. I loved that so much. I tell people that to this day, and they're like, schools like that still exist? Like, that's crazy. It seems like back in crazy old times, but it was amazing. And I did have a really great high school experience. However, I had horrible eczema flare-ups. Now I'll call that high school drama, boyfriend drama, just growing up and your body changing and whatever it is. I really, really struggled with, again, no longer did I struggle with behind my knees. That went away, I would say, I don't know, before I became a teenager. But I always struggled so bad with the insides of my elbows. So, going to this high school where I did have a uniform, what I remember so very much is when you start in the school year in the United States, in the East Coast where I'm at, you start in usually September. Sometimes as early as late August, but usually September. September and October can still be really, really hot, right? And then you graduate, before the school year's over, you are wrapping things up. The school year is ending May or June. So it gets real hot then again. Now, in our school, we had air conditioning, but it took forever for them to turn it on. So it could be boiling hot in those classrooms. And what I remember is that we had a summer uniform and a winter uniform. And yes, you probably have guessed it when I said Catholic high school. It was Mary Jane shoes, those black and white saddle shoes. You had tights. We had god-awful opaque white stockings in the summer. Disgusting. Oh my gosh, so gross. And then we had a white and baby blue skirt. Really not good material. It was really light, but whatever it was. And we had a white button polo t-shirt. Okay. So that was the uniform in the summer. And then winter was the white polo, could be short or long sleeves, with a navy blue cardigan. Okay. Long sleeves. So sweater. And then we had a gray and blue wool skirt with navy blue stockings or tights and saddle shoes again. Right. So when I entered the school year, when the school year began, we were wearing the summer uniform. Well, that wasn't working for me. Even though I was with really nice people, again, all girls, so I didn't really have anybody to try to impress, I still felt so self-conscious. It was horrible. I just remember being so embarrassed, right? Because every teenager, you just want to fit in, right? You want to be like everybody else. You don't realize how, until you're much older, I don't want to be like anyone else. I want to be unique and I'd be like me and be proud and loud and whatever. But at that time, when you're a teen, everybody just wants to fit in, right? You don't want to stand out like a sore thumb. You just want to do whatever you can to blend right in. Well, I felt just so embarrassed that I wore the winter uniform the entire school year because I was just so embarrassed about my insides of my elbows. And I don't really remember anyone asking me why I did that. I'm sure it happened. I just can't really remember. I don't remember what I said. But it was horrible because I'm a sweater. Okay. I was always athletic. I always was into sports and real active and stuff. And I wasn't someone who just never sweat. Sweating was not a problem for me. I was a sweater. So I sweat all the time, but I still would not. I refused to take off that cardigan to wear that like t-shirt, right? I didn't want anyone to see it, and it was awful. So that was really rough. And then, you fall in love. I got my first real boyfriend, and it's just a stressful time. High school is always stressful. I don't care how nice your high school time was. It just is, with all things considered. So I remember going through that, but I will tell you that I wasn't always flared up. There was like days and times and weeks and months where I was, knock on wood, I was good. I was really good. I don't remember, let me put it this way. I don't remember every morning or every day thinking, why is this still here? Why is this still here? I remember there being like nice chunks of time. And my mom, I'm sure when I have her on the show, she could probably recall from her memory, it might even been longer than a couple months. I mean, I might have had some spouts of like a year, 2 years where I was flare free. I was eczema free. I did not have any steroids on, life was good. Life was smooth. Smooth, no pun intended. But I also did always suffer for, again, as long as I can remember, with seasonal allergies. So I also, from the age of, I would say 8 years old, jumping around, sorry about that, but 8 years old, I started to play soccer. My dad was a huge soccer guy. My dad, shout out to Bob Powers, he was my softball coach. He was my soccer coach. He was my brother's coach. My dad was total rock star of a dad. But I couldn't play. I'm sure he wanted me and my brother to be like diehard soccer fans like he was and play like he did in high school and everything. But I couldn't run up and down the field easily. So I remember getting diagnosed with asthma, or sport-induced asthma as they called it. And I had that accordion-looking inhaler, that baby blue, powder blue. It was so embarrassing. As soon as you breathed in, it made that it made a noise. So goofy. I had the regular little inhaler, where you do 2 puffs. And I don't remember what age I didn't need that anymore. I don't think it was too long of a time period where I was using the inhaler, but I definitely needed it for a good chunk of couple years, I would say at least. And so you know how it goes. You got the asthma, the allergies, eczema, it's all related. It's all in the same family. They group it together a lot. And so I had the trifecta. And the allergies, I had typical in the spring, my eyes would be watery, my nose would be running, I'd be sneezing 15 times every morning, and then before bed every single night. And I didn't really notice, winter it was tough because I was really dry. The weather's real dry, it's real cold. That was tough for me. Spring was probably worse. And then I didn't really notice too much trouble in the summertime. Fall is my birthday, my favorite time of the year, and don't really remember having many issues in the fall either. So that was in a nutshell, that was my experience with my eczema and allergies and everything else, my health from age 2, again, up until high school time. So now we're getting into college. All right. Or if you're listening to this overseas, I know that a lot of people in Europe call it university. So, the 4 years after you go to high school, now we're approaching that time period. So 18 is when I graduated high school. I moved on to college. Again, really stressful time for me. I partied my face off. I had a great time in college. Had a different boyfriend, who I actually... No, I'm forgetting my time. Yes, I had this boyfriend in college who I ended up marrying and then getting divorced from, but I'm jumping ahead. So he wasn't on my campus. He was down at University of Penn and Temple, down in the city of Philadelphia, and I was all the way up in Radnor, Pennsylvania, so by King of Prussia Mall area where I was at school. So I did do a lot of traveling back and forth, back to home to visit my parents, back to down to the city to be with my boyfriend. And it was stressful. He was another huge love of my life. Obviously, I married the guy, but it wasn't the healthiest of relationships. And to be fair, I wasn't good. I wasn't good at loving myself. I wasn't good at taking care of Jen. I was not, I I just was such a people pleaser. I was always trying to do things for everybody else and not really thinking about what's the best for me or what do I really want. And, again, these are one of those things where I'm even thinking, looking up at the ceiling right now as I'm recording this, and I'm thinking like, my gosh, it's crazy when you really do a self-check and self-evaluation and you get so much self-awareness as you get older. You're like, wow, you sometimes think like, God, if I did it all again, but I wouldn't change a damn thing. I'm so happy with my life and where I am, and I am so going on a tangent right now, so I'm going to stop doing that. But I just think it's funny when you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I should have known this. I should have done that. Why was I so hard on myself here? And anyway, so college was a blast, but it was also stressful, right? A different kind of stress than high school, but nonetheless, it was still stressful. And it's funny how much we have certain memories and certain things that just we don't have any memory of. I remember saying to my mom a week ago when I was talking to her about the show and how things are going and everything, I was telling her about, I don't really remember having many flare-ups in college. And she was like, wait, Jen, are you serious? Like, you flared up so much all the time. She remembered that I flared up bad. Like my cat, our family pet, she had died. I was a mess. There was just so much stress with my relationship, with school. I'm such a perfectionist, so I wanted to get amazing grades, and I was working my butt off. And then she remembered that I must have had a really bad flare up because I tried to go tanning. So I did tan in high school. I know, tanning, fake and bake, it's not the best thing. We all know this. Watch your skin for skin cancer, et cetera, et cetera. But of course I did that in high school because I wanted to look all cute and go to prom all tan. And I did it again in college because she reminded me that it always seemed to have helped my skin, even though my parents were never a fan of me tanning at all, unless, naturally out in the actual sun, vitamin D. But she reminded me that this was something that seemed to have always helped before. So I started to do that. I went to what was it called? Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the tanning place. But anyway, not important. I would go there a couple days a week after classes and between classes, and it did work. Then I tried to go to red light therapy through my dermatologist, which I don't remember if it worked or it didn't work at that time. But I tried a whole bunch of things, right? I tried different over-the-counter creams. But during this whole time, so during high school and into college, I was prescribed a ton of different steroids. I took prednisone. So I'm sure if you're listening to the show, you're not a stranger to what that is, okay? And that was, I remember, I'm going to laugh, it's not funny, but I used to beg my doctor for it. I'd say, this is my drug of choice. Give me prednisone, load me up. I want it. I can't wait. And I would do the worst thing. You're supposed to avoid the sun. It says, avoid the sun. This will make you sun sensitive. Be very cautious. Well, what do? I was like, great, now I'm going to tan even faster. So I would get on prednisone. Usually it was a 10-day supply orally. I would go fake tan. I'd be bronzed and beautiful and glowing and feeling amazing about myself. And do not do that. Do not recommend that. But of course, you're listening to the show, which means you shouldn't be doing any steroids or wanting to ever touch a steroid again, especially if you're in the middle of TSW or if you are a caregiver of someone with TSW. But I did that. And, I remember I look back at my college graduation, which was 2009, and I was black tan. I mean, like my skin tone should never have been that dark. It was basically like my skin blended right in with my cap and gown. So it was, I guess I thought I looked really good at that time. I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? And I know that my mom's like, yeah, that didn't even look like you. I was not a fan of how dark you got yourself. But, we do what we do. We do stupid things. We do things for vanity reasons. We do this because we're insecure, which I was so insecure and I was so self-conscious all the time, literally my whole life. And it's just so annoying. You just want to shake your younger self and be like, you were so cute and so beautiful and so amazing inside and on the outside or whatever. Just give yourself a break. My goodness. But anyway, that is the quick nutshell, quick summary from 2 now through 21, or what am I, or 22 when I graduated college. And I want to take this time to pause, since it's already been almost, it's been this nice chunk of time right here, and say that I'm going to pick this up on the next episode for part 2 of my story. But before I do that, I just want to say, no matter what your history is with steroid use, maybe you've only used steroids on and off for a year of your life. Maybe you're like me and you use them on and off for 20 or 30 years. Whatever it is, don't beat yourself up because you did what you thought was the right thing. I'm sure I'm going to get emotional when I have my mom on the show. I'm sure she's going to get emotional because, look, at the end of the day, human beings, we are doing our best. We are trying to be good people, I hope, anyway. I hope you're listening to the show and you're one of those people that are a good person. But we're trying to be good people and we're trying to do the right thing, and we're just trying to get the knowledge we need and the tools we need to make our best decisions, right? Sometimes that becomes just a great guess, and we have to take risks and we take chances. But you're listening to the show for whatever your reason is, for yourself, for somebody else, whatever. And I just want you to give yourself some grace and be kind to yourself, because nobody gets through this life without making tons of mistakes, maybe sometimes having some regrets, maybe just you wish you could have, woulda, coulda, shoulda done things differently, okay? But there's a reason that you are exactly where you are right now. There's a reason that you're going through hell. There's a reason that you took those steroid drugs. And maybe it's to be a voice for somebody else. And maybe it's because God, I'm very spiritual, and maybe God is putting this in your path to mold you and to have you use this for your story, like he is for me. But no matter what, just be kind, okay? Because we cannot erase the past. We can't rewrite the story. We can't change anything that we maybe want to change. What we can do is start from right now and change the way the future looks. And we can take charge and we can take control of our life, and we can let go and let God. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for taking this time to listen to my story so that you know who the heck you're talking to. You get to know me a little bit better. And I'm just super grateful for you to be here. So thank you again. Please share the show. Please rate, review, subscribe, leave feedback. Definitely go check out the new site, tswjourneytohealing.com. I will be updating podcast episodes will be on that website, but also there will be a blog. So some of these episodes will become blog posts. Some will be just written blog posts from me writing and sharing resources, tools, tips, etc. for you. And then lastly, I will say again, I need to remind everyone listening to the show that this show is not intended to be treated as medical advice. I am not a medical professional. That is not my area of expertise. I do not have professional schooling or education in that. So disclaimer, always consult a medical doctor, your physician, your medical team when you are considering what you want to do with your health, okay? So this is not intended for any medical advice. This is simply stories, my story, other people's stories, our experience, for informational purposes only. So now that we got that out of the way, have a wonderful rest of your day or night, and I'll see you on the next episode.